Brandon
Yeah.
Aiyuk gave some comments on the Eagles. He even tweeted about it. You even forced him to come out of Twitter retirement on it.
Yeah.
He said how he didn't think that the Eagles were that good. He thought that they were the best team, and he also
Yeah.
believes the Chiefs are going to blow the top off the Eagles in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Think about it.
I almost feel like Brad. So look, Brad did a great job. All credit to Brad. Here's where Brad needed to be like Brandon. Whoa, can we just talk about what you said right there? Not just to argue with Brandon, but you got to understand that what he said was outrageous and controversial. And as soon as it got picked up by anyone, it was going to go viral. So, Brad, what he could have done here was say, "Look, man, I got to push back a little bit. Like, you're on the couch. You lost. Can you really say you were the best team hands down? I mean, there's got to be a respectful way to say it. But now Brandon Aiyuk is in hot water because what he said really doesn't ring true. I mean, this is why you play the games. This is what these games are for. This is what postseason's about. There's no coach's poll at the end of the season to determine who the real winner was. It just makes you sound like a sore loser. If you can't own your if you can't hold your losses, hold that L and learn from it, then you're doomed to repeat the same stuff. And frankly, despite the great season and the great story, the Niners made it no further than last year.
Right.
So I'm guessing Brandon Aiyuk, probably Brad hit up Brandon directly and was like, "Man, you want to come on my show?" And Brandon was like, "Yeah," out of the goodness of his heart. But probably didn't go through the PR staff, and the PR staff was like, "Hey, man, if he says this, don't say this, or don't say this, or make sure you don't totally belittle the Eagles, or be respectful." I'm sure it was very off the cuff, not planned,
which is what you want. But
it's what you want. It's how I did it with Jimmy Ward. But the difference is Jimmy Ward is 32. Mm-hmm. I mean, Jimmy Ward, although he's not super media guy with a bunch of handlers telling him what to say, he's been through. He's my age. He's my age. He knows what he's doing. He knows what to say. He knows where the line is and how to cross it just a little bit, just for a little bit for fun. Like Brandon, God love you, man. You just sprinted past that line and kept going like a freaking fade route. And Brad was "Yeah, man, I'm gonna air it out." Whoa, whoa, let's bring you back. Because I don't think Kyle wants him talking like that. Although I'm sure I'm guessing Kyle talks like that privately, which is also a problem. You shouldn't talk like that privately. You should own your mistakes and learn from them. But dude, Brandon, and I like Brandon. I mean, he was so cool about it afterward on Twitter. He's a really cool guy, but it just reminds me that these players are hella young, man. I mean, you can't say that because they're older than you. But from my perspective, man, you just out of college. These are all learning experiences. But in the future, Brandon, don't totally trash a team that just beats you by 24 and is in the Super Bowl. And Brad, man, you got to push back a little bit. Don't let Brandon get himself in trouble like that. That's all I'm saying. But, hey, shout out to you for getting him. Nothing but respect for Brad Graham.
Yeah, and I mean,
you know what I'm saying, though, right?
Yeah, no, I do. And Brent, I mean, if you guys are questioning it, Brandon Aiyuk himself admitted it today. He said, "I'm clearly talking shit," and then he said, "Yes, I'm salty" on Twitter today when talking specifically about those comments. And I mean, Brandon Aiyuk himself admitted he probably knows what he was saying. And I know it's one portion of the interview of an hour-long interview, and it's one portion of it. And I think he was trying to portray that the 49ers themselves believe that they had the strongest team going into it, which is totally fine. You're supposed to go into the playoffs.
Of course they do.
Yeah, of course you're supposed to go into the playoffs thinking you're the team that they gotta beat. And so that's the good mindset, just portrayed a little differently, which was the unfortunate part.
I like Brandon though. I'm not over here being like Brandon. But I do think this is Kyle's culture. This is Kyle's culture. If you never really acknowledge that you lost a game, there's always a reason. There's an excuse. There's a misfortune. They say that it was unfortunate. If there's always some unfortunate event, then there's never any accountability, and it trickles down from one player to the next. And then you talk like this, and you got third-year wide receiver going on I'm sure the Niners had no idea he was doing that interview. All of a sudden, oh my God, Brandon, we could have talked about that. Brandon, you said the quiet part out loud. Don't do that. No. And it's dude, the league is going to hold this against the Niners for a long. You can't talk like this about teams. I mean, the Eagles aren't going to forget it. They're going to play them next year. You heard how Brandon Graham came out before the game and talking to George Kittle like they had every reason to feel disrespected. The Eagles, and that was before Brandon Aiyuk said what he said. I mean, the Niners really made it very clear that they didn't really respect the Eagles coming into that game. Do you remember in the lead up to the game, Eric Branch kept asking the same question to everyone?
Which one?
He was like, you guys are a really physical team.
Yes.
When you look at the Eagles, do you feel like they're sort of like the one team that can kind of match your physicality? He asked that like 10 times. And every single time, a player or coach was asked that question, long pause. I mean, that's what the game's for. We'll find out. They're a really good team on paper. They got a lot of talent on paper. They kept saying stuff like that. It was like, whoa, man, can't you just, even if you don't believe it, can't you just lie and say, yeah, they're a great team? Absolutely. They're a super physical team. They fly around. They're well coached. End of story. Yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. Like, you're supposed to build them up so that way when you beat them, you're like, wow, we just beat the best team ever. That's how you do it. You build them up. And then you make them think they're great, and then you beat them, and you're like, man, we just accomplished the greatest feat of all time. That's what Bill Belichick does. But the Niners are over here being like, yeah, I don't know about the Eagles. We're going to have to, I don't know, man. That was a mistake. To me, that was a mistake. I don't know.
And I think it's fair, right? Obviously, we don't know how this game was going to go if Brock Purdy remained healthy. We have no clue, and it could have been either way. I mean, I don't know what you picked. I picked the Eagles to win by a small margin. I thought that they were the better team. I did pick the Eagles to win.
2016. I said 2016 Philly. I said 2016.
Yeah, I said 2020. What did I say? 27-24. So I thought it was going to be a toss-up, but unfortunately, that's in the past. But you're talking about Kyle Shanahan, and you're talking about this culture that he's created. A lot of people talk about how strong Kyle Shanahan's culture has been, but that's also one of the portions of it.